Hello, we are now going to do some sweat soldering. So part number one, I'm going to show you how I cut solder. This is hard solder right here, is a chip of it. And one of the things I like to do is make sure it's clean. So I'll grab a piece of sandpaper, tiny one, and I will rub it till it's clean. Oh, that's so nice. Because tarnish on any aspect of the soldering process causes oxidization and a bad weld. So I'm going to show you, this is what I'm going to sweat solder right now. These are actually, in this case, 3 pieces that I'm going to make into one ring. Here are my shears, just to start showing you. First thing I like to do when I am cutting small pieces of solder is I cut little strips. Sort of like when you get into food service and you first learn how to cut an onion. Keep the back end of it whole and you just cut pieces off the front. So there's my little pieces, and you can kind of flatten them down. And if you put your finger on the end, they won't go splaying everywhere. So I'm going to cut one little set. Try not to cut my finger. 2, 3, and 4. Okay, that's some solder there. Something to work with. Now, actually ahead of time, I painted both of these with some flux, but since it's dried out completely, and that's kind of a goal, I'm gonna get a little more handy flux and paint just a bit more on, because sometimes the flux sticks better to a slightly tacky surface. Oh, I'm sorry, the solder sticks better to a slightly tacky surface than none at all. Now I'm going to start putting these pieces of solder down. I like to always make sure that some of my biggest pieces are just going to automatically go in the 4 corners. Sometimes they stick to my tweezers. That means that my tweezers are dirty. So I try to clean them off. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's in little increments all over. What I like to do is I like to think of them as like tiny, square, uncooked chocolate chip cookies. And I'm going to pop in the oven, and they're just going to spread a little bit. They're not going to spread a ton. And I want to cover every surface. So I'm actually going to pop these cookies fairly close to one another because I want every surface filled with just a bit. Now here's one that I cut, but all the parts kind of ran together. So I'm going to put that one aside because that one's annoying. And I'm also going to move these pieces up rather close to what I've cut out. Now this is a pretty simple form. I didn't do anything that looks like fingered peninsulas. But if I do that, say like over here, I'm going to have to put my pieces all along this edge and down here and get it everywhere where it's going to flow. Now if I create something that's like a long pokey peninsula, I got to get a piece of solder, tiny piece of solder on the very edge of that. So yeah, it'll be exciting. So I'm going to speed this up and let you watch. Okay, everything's on there. Now I'm ready to actually start soldering. So, see if I can get this a little closer. Turn on the vent. Now the first thing I'm going to do, because this is wet, is I'm going to heat only from this direction here to just warm it. Hold on. Okay, I know I'm going to heat this until it solders, but I'm going to try to just dehydrate the flux so that it doesn't boil. There we go. So I'm just going to heat from this side because the air is pulling it from that direction. So I'm going to heat a little bit over here. And I can turn my flame down pretty low so that it's a little easier. I'm going to wait until my flux turns kind of whitish. Come around this way. Just moving around the piece, but not aiming it directly at it quite yet. And it's starting to whiten in some areas. There's a couple of pieces that I've missed here. I'm just going to drop from above. So I'm just warming it. I can also heat an area of my block like that and then move the whole piece over to the heated area and just let the general space dehydrate the flux. And that seems to be doing a nice job. So you can kind of see they will move a little bit if you aim it directly at them. If they move a lot, they will bounce clean off the piece. It's not what you want. It looks like one did move, and there's nothing right there. So I'm going to try to find another piece that moved off. Here it is. Put it right there. Maybe that one too. No, here's one. Boop. And of course everything wants to stick to my tweezers. It's lovely. Come on. Wipe it off like a sticky booger on your finger. Damn it. Come on. There you go. Woohoo! Alright, so now I'm going to apply a little heat, a little closer, see if anything jumps. They kind of stand up, but they often don't jump off when you get really, whoop, they're standing up. Whoop, bubbly, bubbly. Okay, I'm going to turn the heat up, flame up a little bit longer, till it I mean business. Oop, a little less than that. There we go. And I'm going to aim my torch tip straight down, moving constantly, lingering never anywhere. I want to heat the whole piece up like it were cookies. And move back and forth, back and forth. And you see it gets kind of dark, a little murky at least at first, and then it'll start to kind of turn a little bit technicolor like it does in the annealing, and then it'll start to get kind of bright. I might slow down my heat movement just a little bit, going in a circular move, getting a little closer, and it's brighter, and pretty soon, you see the shine happen like a halo, just like that. Lovely. That's part one. On the second piece, that is a piece of copper. I'll push it a little closer. There. And you can see that it's a slightly different color, and when I heat it, you'll be able to see the color difference, which will be quite exciting. So I'm just going to do the same thing. Put all these little bits on. There we go. Fast motion. Didn't really work. Okay, we're back to this method. I gotta coat the tops of my solder as well. So I'm gonna gently touch some of these pieces, and that's gonna make the pieces move a bit. It's okay, I'll just make a minor adjustment. Lots of adjustment. There. Okay, that's pretty good. Readjust. Get some doubling up here. Tripling up. I have that. Move things apart again. Okay, so there's a lot of moisture on that. Lots. Once again, I'm going to use a very tiny flame, and I'm going to try to dehydrate the flux so that the solder won't wiggle, bounce, jump, or go crazy. Once again, the best way I always find is to heat up a portion, really warm, turn off your flame, and scoot the whole thing over to that spot that was very warm. And just wait a little bit. I think it might do it. A little bit. Not a whole lot. Okay. I'm pushing this baby. Oops, little jumpy. Jumpy. see it dance a little bit. As long as it doesn't dance too much, we're good. It's going to get kind of white. There we go. Turn off the flame. And stay about that distance from the piece. This is going to get dark. And then the flux will turn into a glass and it'll start to get brighter. It's getting there. And it's starting to flow just like that. There's a couple more over here and here. You see, yeah, those all went. Now, this needs the pickle. If you have home pickle that's made out of just baking soda and vinegar, you can quench instantly. But if you're at school and you're using Sparex, do not do this. So before I go forward, I'm going to remedy some of the gaps in this piece right here. Let's see if I can get this up just a snag taller. Oh yeah, here we go. I'm going to cut some more pieces. I'm going to use my punch. What I don't want to do is put so little on that I create pockets of no solder, because those pockets, when I start to form it, will stretch in a really strange way and really ruin the piece. So I'm going to add just a few more pieces to avoid pockets, especially on the interior, where there's kind of a tendency towards stuff to flow in another direction, creating an even bigger pocket. So I'm going to spend a little time fixing a second time around what needs more. There's nothing wrong with going back and working it some more. Now, some of these spots might have bunched up and created a really big zone, but it'll only, when I press down, spread a little bit. So I'm not going to rely on them to flow further than maybe a couple centimeters around them. So I'm gonna just err on the side of overkill here. It's much better, especially first time around. There's a spot right there. And when I'm dealing with internal details like this space around the eye, I'm just going to add a couple more, because that's one of those places where a pocket might lift up and create a huge problem for me. It's hard to describe it now, like what kind of mistake that will be, but later on when you form it, it can get all kinds of ugly. So let's just do it now while we can. Ooh, bouncy. Don't let it get too bouncy, baby. I'll turn it on. Moving around. Moving around. Oh, it's jumping, but it's not leaving the spot. Okay. Now, turn up. Moving quickly, getting some flow. Good. Up on the end. Excellent. There's a ball right there. Gotta get rid of that ball. Oh, ball won't go. Funny. So I ended up with a couple of balls. Yeah, that piece. That's not gonna work. Both of those. I don't know why they didn't stick. They have to go. Okay. Now we're gonna just do the same thing. Pop it in the non-Sparex pickle, non-HCl, just homegrown pickle. There we go. So this one here looks pretty good. It came out of the pickle, but there's still a couple of little bits. There's things that look kind of coppery colored. That's actually leftover flux. And there's a couple of dark little patches. Those I'm going to clean up by sanding. Okay, now the last part is actually to solder them all together. Each one of them has flux on both sides now. And they're stacked one on top of each other. And they are ready to be heated up. Nice flame. I'm going to just go right in here. And I'm also going to keep my pick handy here, just in case I have to give it a little pressure. I'm going to go back and forth. I'm going to look for kind of a halo of light around each piece. I'm seeing it solder. Oh, there we go. I'm going to heat it a little bit on this side because the halo thing is only happening a little. Okay. That must be it. You can see that the copper got kind of glowy, a little bit orange, whereas the silver didn't do much of that. I'm going to try pickling it, see how that went.